Here's that bracket I cleaned up a few moments ago, and here's the new power steering pump, and obviously here's the old one. Okay, the reason I'm showing you this, I want to show you the new replacement pulley. I like so much better. Crappy plastic, no access to these holes here through the pulley. The replacement one, ta-da, metal, it's pretty too. But if you keep eyeball that right here, stick your socket right through there, you can tighten up that bracket, that hole, right through there. And of course, you know, whichever one of the three holes you want to use, right there, because I showed you that one, and there's that one. So much easier, so much easier. This is much like, I stripped out a 95 Grand Cherokee a while back, and the power steering pump and all the stuff that come off of it had the same exact holes here. So, like the replacement much better. It actually crossed my mind, because I've got that power steering pump for the Grand. I might just eyeball it a little bit, see if it'll go on the front of this Jeep, because it has the reservoir built onto the pump. I like that. But since I've already got a new pump, I'm going to put this on. But whenever I put the new motor in, I'm going to be building one before too long. When I put that motor in, I may put in the Grand Cherokee pump. We'll find out. See how many times I change my mind. So what do you say we go ahead and get this thing kind of put together a little bit? We'll go ahead and put the bracket on, because that's not going to hurt anything. So take the bracket, 3 holes. Turn the viewfinder around so make sure I can see what's going on. Here's your adjustment stud that goes to that bottom bracket, that little adjustment bolt that comes out this way. Here's your power steering pump, the return tube. It's going this way, so that means that this is how you got your line position, your pump position. Here's your pressure line coming here. So that's how you oriented it. Lay it like this. This is at the bottom. And once you get pretty well in place, you see how your bolt holes line up. You can only really go on that one way, provided you got the pumps at the right orientation. Now I'm just going to give them a good snug for right now. When I put the pump on the Jeep tomorrow, I'll be able to stick my socket through this right here and just give them a good tightening. But they don't have to be ridiculously tight, so don't be getting all He-Man on them. There's that. Now, ta-da! Put that in place. You know, I'm kind of questioning myself here right now. Here's my situation. I can press this on now, but if that power steering pressure line tomorrow, if I pick it up and it's the wrong one and I can't use it, I still have my old one that I can hopefully manipulate to make it work, because I didn't damage the tubing whenever I stretched it open to unscrew this, to screw this off. So if I press this on now and that line is correct, it's the right part tomorrow, I'm good to go. I can screw, put the line on, mount the pump, good to go. But if it's not, I'll have to pull this pulley back off again to spin the pump on, because where I busted this one out, it gave me enough clearance to spin that. Oops, couldn't see it, could you? Because where I busted this right here out, it gave me enough clearance to be able to spin out the fitting right there. So you know what? As much as I keep wanting to work on this thing to try to get as close to done as possible, I think I really need to just call it quits for now until I get my pressure line tomorrow. That way I know exactly what direction I need to go. I hate it when crap like this happens, but hey, welcome to mechanicking. Picked up the new pressure hose. Now let's take a look at it real quick before we start putting it on. You want to look here, this bend. Okay, we have the same bend on this one. And the fitting here, you see it screws down inside this piece right here. It's what I was mentioning earlier about these two pieces not separating. This is what's supposed to happen. This piece right here is supposed to spin very easily on the tubing. And on the other end, let me get to it. And this end here is supposed to spin here also. So therefore it screws into your steering box or your power steering pump easily. Well, what's happened, this piece right here down in the steering box, this piece is seized to the tubing, therefore not wanting to turn loose, and well, it just created one major headache yesterday. So let's get that power steering pump put on. Hopefully the luck goes a little bit better today. Now change the pressure line out. We got to take it loose from the box. And so you guys see where I'm at. Here is the pressure line where my hand's at. So if I get the little camera angle better, here we go. I'm using a crow's foot on my ratchet. Now, if you follow any of my videos, you guys may have heard me say how much I do not like body lifts. The reason I don't is that they're just rough on the body mount points. The body shifts on the frame a lot. Well, this thing, when I bought it, it had a 3-inch body lift already put into it. I would not have installed it myself. I haven't taken it out because I'm scared this thing's so rusted. About every bolt on it's like rusted too. So I know as soon as I start taking out the body lift, I'm gonna start twisting body mounts into and just make a mess out of it. So I just haven't done it yet. The advantage to body lifts now, as you see, I got room to get in here. Now otherwise you'd have to come in from under here, get your wrench, and take out that pressure line. So I want to take my crow's foot, keep working with that. I just about got it out, and I thought, hey, wait a minute, I need to get my camera so you guys can see what's going on. So I'm going to finish taking that pressure line out, put the new line in here just a moment, and we'll start working on the pump. Be sure to pay attention. Whenever you get a new power steering pump, you get new O-rings that goes into the seal up on the pump itself. Now whenever you get a new pressure line, you get two sets of seals. We get two seals. O-ring here, and one that goes up top, which I'll show you here in a bit. Put you a little bit of fluid on them. Let's see if I can do this with one hand holding the camera. Let me reposition here in a moment. And don't let it hit on that sharp edge no more than you have to. And just kind of, see if I get the angle here. You got to push it up on there until it just sits up on the flare right here. Now we'll just take it down, screw it in, tighten it up. Okay, got this tightened up, O-ring seated correctly. It's tucked up around through here. Runs above this line right here. For some weird reason, this line right here was fitted just a little bit different as the way it came around all that. But we got it in there, it's all that matters. Now here's what's important here that is knocked down back through here. Be sure it's going to sit over top like this. I've already set the pump in place. One bolt just kind of letting it float there. Green cap here, this screws into that, so notice the positioning of the hose has kind of come up. So be sure, if you follow it, I can't see what the camera sees, got too much glare out here. But here's the hose coming back under here. So we can start putting the pump in. I'm going to go ahead and put a few bolts into it, getting it snugged up. Then we'll put the pulley on. I'll show you how to press it in. Okay, putting this thing back together. There's the adjuster block. Put that in place first. Then we're going to take your pump, bring it down, tilt it down back a little bit. I can't get the camera in there to see that. And we bring the stud through that groove right there. Now when you put the adjuster bolt back in, you're going to take this and readjust, set it to where it meets up with the bolt. Not a big deal. Then here's one of your 12mm bolts. Top hole here. Right in a couple of threads, get everything in the ballpark. Then you start putting the rest of your bolts in. Okay, somewhere back on my commentary, I think I told you guys something wrong. That's the adjuster block right there. I told you guys where you tighten and loosen your belt. Your adjuster bolt coming in through here. Your adjuster block is going to be pointing downward, and you're adjusting the long bolt is actually going to go below this stud inside that bracket. I think earlier when I told you guys, when I was cleaning the bolts, I told you guys it's oriented the wrong direction. The adjuster block points down into the bracket. Okay, I've got the bolts in just touching pretty much. The pump will move with a little bit of effort. Now I'm going to put my line on. Now I've already put my O-ring in down here, and I put just a little bit of power steering fluid juice on it before I put it in. And putting hydraulic lines together, it's one of those things to where you got to learn the feel as to when it's in there and when it's not. Because this is one place you do not want to cross thread. Because if you can't get proper pressure on your seals, you will have a leak. Because you're under considerable bit of hydraulic pressure on these. So I've got that started. I'm going to tighten that up, and then we'll get to pressing that pulley on. Well, I think I'll go ahead and tighten these bolts right here since they're easy accessible first. Then I'll put my pulley on. Even though you can go through the pulley, 6 to 1, half a dozen to another. Don't matter as long as it gets there. Got the power steering line tightened up now, the pressure line. And now what you want to do is, as you're tightening this up, hold this in place, because what you want to do, back in behind the pressure line here, and here's the pump. I can just about, and if I really smash my pinky, I can get it in between. So I've got probably, I don't know, about 3/8 of an inch of gap right there. Then the pressure line goes all the way down, loops back up to the steering box. Nowhere along its path is it touching anything. Before you tighten this down, watch, twist and turn this right here. Watch where the pressure line goes so it's not touching anything. Once you get in that position to where it is clear of everything, snug that baby down, and you put a little bit of to it to make sure it's good and tight and it doesn't move on you. Okay, so I'm going to snug down these 3 bolts right here real quick since I've got them in place and no need for taking them off. Then we'll press the pulley. To press the pulley on, you're going to need these parts. Screw shaft, which is right here, the big flat nut washer thingy right here, and we're going to need thrust washer and the bearing here, and the thrust bearing and the washer. There we go, we got it right this time. Now I've already got this screw insert in place here. And you got various different ones that way for different cars and used for whatever you need. But the bit you want, as you can see here, set these down so I don't drop them somewhere. I've got this screwed back up inside the shaft till it, screw it in until it just touches, stops right there. No need to tighten them up, no need to cranking it, nothing. Just till it bottoms out on the end of the pump shaft. You're good there. So then we take, kind of set the pulley in place. I'm trying to do this with one hand. It probably ain't gonna work very well. Now your thrust washer, a thrust bearing, should I say? Back and zoom up. Here's your bearing side here, flat side here. Put that against here. Get on there like that. Then you get your washer. And just by habit, I don't think it really makes a hill of beans worth of difference. This is the rounded edge side here. When you get the kit for yourself, you'll see what I'm saying. Put that on there. Back this down a little bit so you got plenty right here sticking up through there, because what that's going to do is a couple things. It's going to go up inside the pulley to center the pulley along on the shaft, and also it's going to give you plenty of thread engagement to be sure it doesn't pull off the threaded insert. So screw it back a little bit so you got plenty of engagement. Then fit it into that adapter, thread adapter you screwed inside there. Screw that on. Okay, so it's pretty well bottomed out. Now you take this and snug it up on there. Just kind of spin your pump a little bit, because it's going to make your bearing want to reseat a little bit. Do you see it's pretty well centered, it's flat, flush up on the shaft. Because this right here will kind of push it up evenly, because it's all these surfaces are parallel with each other. And it'll flatten that pulley out on that shaft where it should pretty well center it. and just snug it up a little bit. Spin your pump. Be sure it's not wobbling back and forth like this too much, which it shouldn't be if it's on there correctly. So it looks like we're good to go. So I'm gonna get the wrenches to fit here and here, and we'll press that thing on there. I've got my wrenches in place, and I've got 1/2 inch on the small shaft, using a 13/16 on the nut that I used to press on with. On the 1/2 inch side, on the 1/2 inch wrench, just simply place your hand in here, hold it in place so it doesn't turn. The big wrench, just turn that nut and just keep turning until it's on there. That's all you can do. And if you want to, you can take it off and spin your pump a little bit. Watch the pulley, make sure it's not wobbling this way or doing any kind of weird crap. And it looks like it's going on straight as it can be. So we'll put our wrench back on. Keep pressing. And somebody's going to ask, how do you know when it stops? You'll know. As it gets further up on the pump shaft, it'll start getting harder and harder to turn too, because you're physically, in machinist terms, the inside diameter holes of this and the outside diameter shaft of the pump is what you call an interference fit. Now, I did pull out my calipers to measure how much interference it is. Don't care. But it is an interference fit, which means the hole in this is smaller than the outside diameter of the pump shaft, which makes you have to press it on so it doesn't come off on its by itself. So as you press it on there, it will get harder and harder to turn. So you guys see what to do. I'm not going to bore you to death sitting watching that. Now, I mentioned a moment ago as to you will know whenever it is fully pressed on. Well, for one, your bolts are pretty well covered. You're getting close to your pressure line here, and also it's just like it locks up its brakes, because you're not going to get much more out of it at all. Like I said, it ain't moving now. So that's when you know you're there. Now, one thing that would help you, since you got your air box out right here, if you got a wrench long enough, you can put this here. A wrench long enough will come over, rest on this right here, and then all you got to do is take one hand, just keep cranking on this pressing bolt right here, and you're good to go. So now that I've got my pulley pressed on, I'll hold this here. Break the pressure loose. And then you screw the whole press assembly out. Now, before I take out that threaded adapter, I want to show you guys something. There's the threaded adapter. Let me back up a little bit. Right there's the end of the pump shaft. Again, you know when you hit it. Now, there's oftentimes that whenever you're pressing a power steering pump pulley on, that you don't always see the end of the shaft come out the end of the pulley. That doesn't always happen. But you do know whenever it hits its brakes and you can't press no more out of it. So now we'll put my return line on, we'll put the belt on, tighten the belt to proper specs, and put some juice in it. I've got my belt tension set up now, if you look, and I'm not putting a whole lot of pressure on it, on the belt at all, just, I mean, probably a couple pounds or two. You see how I'm flexing the belt? I'll push straight down on it. That's about how you want your belt. Not too tight, because if you get your belt too tight, you're going to start ripping the bearings of all your accessories, your alternator, your power steering pump, and all that. Not too tight, but too loose, of course, you're going to have a belt slip that's going to issue. So, if I put my thumb on the belt, press down on it, I mean, I've got no easy flex. I mean, it's not just floppy or nothing like that, but if I push down on it, I'm getting about 1/4 inch of flex before I really have to put any effort into it. course, down here, right there is your belt tensioning bolt, as I pointed out to you a time or two. Since I cleaned those bolts up, setting the belt tension was so easy, much better. So if you got the time, go ahead and clean your bolts up. It makes life a lot easier on you, I promise you. Your belt alignment, as you snake your belt around, be sure your ribs are set up. Now, my alternator, I'm just going to point that out real quick. Notice I got one exposed rib. I'll put a link in the description below to the video. This is a Dodge Durango alternator, high amp alternator. So it's a 7 rib pulley. Just use the back 6 ribs. In case any of you people notice, hey, wait a minute, you got a rib exposed. That's why, because I've got that high amp alternator on this thing. And I've got 1 rib exposed. I could have put a 6 rib on it, but as long as you use the back 6, you're good to go. I can't see what the camera's seeing. It's bright out here. Back to proper alignment to the crank pulley down there. We're good to go on the belt. Now I just got to find me a hose clamp for my return line. Tighten up the bolts on the back side of the pump here and pour some juice in it. Okay, you see I've already topped off the fluid. Well, I put fluid in it, started the Jeep, turned the wheel from rack to rack a few times, purged all the air out of the gearbox and everything to circulate through the system. Fluid looks like it's, got a little bit of cavitation, a little foamy look to it. Topped it off because it pulled quite a bit down to refeed all the new lines and stuff. Topped off the fluids. Pump is quiet. Lock that in. Pump's quiet. You check around through here and plus down the steering box there. Make sure you got no leaks because I had to change my lines and all. No squeaking from the belt. The pump is quiet now. Sounds good. I think I'm done finally. Now obviously this is the old power steering pressure hose. I want to show you guys a couple things. Okay, look at this right here. See how hard that is to turn? I put a wrench on it, I can turn it. You want to know why? Well, throughout all the times of four-wheeling, out playing in creeks and stuff like that, all that water and crud is going to get down in behind this right here, and it'll seize this fitting up to the tubing, therefore making it very hard to come off and very hard to turn whenever you got to change them out. Part of my issues whenever I was been fighting and struggling with this darn thing. But that's just one of those things I just want to point out. But the other thing is, I didn't catch it on the new pressure line, or I didn't catch it on video. The new pressure line has some damaged threads. It looked like when I was going through the manufacturing process that something had hit it at an angle and damaged the threads and smashed them down flat. So whenever I was trying to start it, it would get like a thread into it and it would freeze up. One of the things you do not want to do is cross thread a pressure fitting, because you will not get a proper seal and you'll always get leak. So every time I started, it just didn't feel right. I'd back it back out, look at it, back it out, look at it. Finally I caught it that the threads was messed up. Okay, if you take hacksaw, if you got damaged threads, which this one does not, but if you take, like this is damaged right there for instance, you take a blade and drag backwards on it like this, slow and easy. What it will do, it will cause a void in the threads. What it will also do is straighten that thread out just enough that you can screw it into it and fit properly. Once that was done and corrected those damaged threads, it was screwed in great. Now, one thing you could also do if you have one, they make these files that are perfect little triangles. Now, if you got one of those little small ones, that'd be even better to get down inside there to groove out those the trough part of the threads and reshape the peaks of the threads for any kind of damaged issues. So that's just one of those backyard mechanic tricks that does work, because I just ran into it as installing the new pressure line. So yeah, this was typically an hour and a half job on these motors, turned into a ridiculously amount of time. But sometimes that just happens. Alright everyone, what'd you think about the video? Now typically to do a power steering pump, we're looking at an hour and a half most. That's somebody who's done some cranking with some wrenches under the hood. And I've been doing it since I was I don't know, since before I could actually drive, to be honest with you. So yeah, this was a job. Every now and then you run into one of those jobs. It could be on a Jeep, it could be on a car, it could be on a motorcycle, it could be on anything. Every now and then you run into one that's just gonna be a bear, and this was one of them. The pulley didn't want to come off. You see how I ripped the collar off of it. Power steering lines didn't want to come off. The pressure line, you've seen all the issues it had. Nature of driving an old rig, it just is what it is. So everyone, if you liked that video, be sure to hit that thumbs up. If you didn't do it at the beginning of the video, oh yeah, I just want to say one thing. You know, and typically I do an opening before I actually do the video itself, you know, recording the how-to part of it. This video actually warranted me doing the beginning, the opening and the closing at the same time, simply to prepare you guys for the headache that this went through. Now for you novice mechanics, the ones that's up and coming, wanting to learn how to do your own wrenching and stuff, this is not a typical thing that happens. And I'm going to be honest with you guys that, you know, I can make this, you know, I shoot video. Thing of it is, I could have made it look like it was a simple gig and be done with, no big deal. But I'm not going to lie to you. So there it is. I edited out some of it because you need to hear my mouth line. So everyone, thumbs up if you like it, subscribe if you haven't, great comments down below. www.fixjeeps.com. Go check it out. Peace. Later, y'all.